Okay, so let's unpack this today's deep dive. It takes us to a snowy mountain peak.
Okay.
A story of survival that'll leave you wondering
Oh, wow.
about the line between reality and,
Yeah,
well, something else.
I like it already.
We've got one source for this one.
Okay.
Carlos's account
Okay.
of his harrowing climb and the avalanche that swept him away,
Oh, geez.
and a rescue that sounds almost too good to be true.
Single source, you say?
Yeah.
Almost like a modern-day campfire story.
Exactly.
Passed down through whispers and wonder.
And it's got all the elements of a great one.
Yeah.
Stark setting sudden danger.
Right.
A touch of the mysterious.
I love it.
So Carlos is an experienced climber,
Yeah.
tackling this peak with some friends.
Okay.
He paints a vivid picture of the beauty up there, the camaraderie,
Yeah.
the sense of adventure,
Right.
and then bam, an avalanche.
Just like that.
Yeah.
The mountain turns from majestic to menacing.
Right.
I imagine the sudden terror,
Oh,
the
no.
disorientation.
He describes being swept away, this crushing force,
Wow.
and then the silence
Oh,
of
yeah.
being buried under tons of snow,
Wow.
alone, injured,
Oh, gosh.
facing the very real possibility of
Well, a situation that would push anyone to their absolute limit,
right.
physically and mentally.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm ready.
He claims that while trapped,
Yeah.
he heard a distinct digging sound.
Okay.
Then this hand
Uh-huh.
reaching through the snow toward him,
Reaching for him.
but not just any hand.
Okay.
He describes it as glowing,
Oh, wow.
almost translucent.
Glowing.
This figure, surrounded by a warm golden light, pulled him to safety, guided him until he was found by his friends.
A glowing hand.
Yeah,
That's a detail that instantly sparks the imagination.
yeah.
But before we jump to conclusions,
Right.
let's rewind a bit.
Okay.
We need to understand the full context of Carlos's experience to analyze his account.
Right. Set the scene for us.
Okay.
What was it like up there
Sure.
before everything went sideways?
Well, based on his account, it was a picture-perfect climb,
Okay.
sun glinting off the snow-crisp air,
Yeah.
that shared joy of conquering a challenging climb with friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a postcard, you know?
Yeah.
But with this undercurrent of tension, knowing what's coming.
That contrast, the beauty and the looming danger,
Right.
it definitely adds to the drama.
Totally.
But walk us through the avalanche itself.
Okay.
What would that have been like for Carlos?
Imagine the sudden roar.
Yeah.
The mountain literally groaning as this wall of snow breaks loose.
Wow.
It would be utterly overwhelming.
Yeah.
The sheer power of nature unleashed.
Yeah.
He describes being tossed around like a rag doll.
Oh, wow.
Complete chaos and sensory overload.
Then the silence you mentioned before.
Right.
Almost as terrifying as the roar.
It is.
He's injured alone, buried alive.
Oh my gosh.
What would be going through his mind at that point?
Think about it, the crushing weight of the snow. The struggle to breathe, the chilling cold.
Right.
Add to that the darkness, the silence, the lack of any human contact.
It's just...
It would amplify the feelings of isolation and fear,
Yeah.
creating a truly nightmarish scenario.
It's like a sensory deprivation chamber.
Yeah.
But with the added terror of knowing you're trapped in a very real, very dangerous situation.
Exactly. And in that moment of absolute despair,
Yeah.
facing his own mortality,
Yeah.
he does what many of us might do.
Yeah.
He prays.
Oh, wow.
He pleads for a miracle.
Yeah.
And that's where the story takes this fascinating turn.
Right, that glowing hand.
Yeah.
Before we get there, though, you mentioned before that Carlos's story isn't unique.
Uh-huh.
What did you mean by that?
Throughout history, there are countless stories
Yeah.
of people surviving seemingly impossible situations,
Right.
often attributing their survival to something beyond the rational, divine intervention, unexplained forces, call it what you will.
Like those stories of miraculous rescues, near-death experiences,
Right.
people seeing a light at the end of a tunnel.
Exactly. And many of these stories,
Yeah.
even across different cultures and times, have similar elements.
Right.
A sense of peace in the midst of danger.
Okay.
Feeling watched over or guided, even visions of light or angelic beings.
Like Carlos's glowing figure.
Right.
Makes you wonder if it's a coping mechanism.
Could be.
Our minds trying to make sense of trauma, or if there's something more to it.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
It's where faith and science often collide.
Yeah.
On one hand, we can't deny the incredible resilience
Right.
of the human spirit.
Yeah.
Our brains are wired for survival. And in extreme situations, they can do some pretty amazing things.
You're talking about things like the fight or flight response, right?
That's one part of it.
Okay.
Think about it. In a life-or-death situation, your body pumps adrenaline, endorphins, all sorts of chemicals
Wow.
that can alter your perception of time, pain, even your senses.
So he might have been experiencing things differently
Yeah.
than if he were just sitting at home safe and sound.
Right.
But that doesn't explain the digging sound he heard
True.
or the perfectly timed rescue.
True. Those details are harder to dismiss.
Right.
Could there have been an anonymous rescuer?
Hmm.
Someone who heard his cries for help or saw signs of the avalanche?
Possible, I suppose.
Yeah.
But then wouldn't they have stuck around
Right.
to make sure he got to safety?
That's the thing with this story.
Yeah.
It keeps pushing us to consider different possibilities.
Okay.
What about subtle shifts in the snowpack?
Okay.
Maybe they created air pockets, allowing sound to travel further, making a distant noise seem closer.
Okay, I'm with you on that.
Okay.
But how do we reconcile what Carlos experienced
Right.
with what could be scientifically explained?
That's the challenge and the beauty of these kinds of deep dives.
Right.
We have his account, which is undeniably powerful and sincere, but we also have to recognize the limitations of human perception.
Right.
How our minds can shape our experiences, especially in extreme situations.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where some pieces are missing.
It is.
You mentioned hypothermia earlier.
Yeah,
Could that have played a role?
absolutely.
Okay.
Hypothermia doesn't just cause shivering.
Ah.
It can lead to hallucinations, disorientation, even a sense of euphoria.
Wow.
Remember how Carlos described the figure as warm and glowing?
Yeah.
Could his body in a state of hypothermia be creating those sensations
Interesting.
to counteract the extreme cold?
Wow, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
So his brain, trying to keep him alive, might have conjured this image
Yeah.
of warmth and comfort.
It's a possibility,
Right.
and one we can't ignore.
Right.
But even with all these potential explanations, there's still that lingering question.
Yeah.
Did something truly extraordinary happen on that mountain?
I guess that's why Carlos's story resonates with so many people.
I think so.
It forces us to confront the unknown,
Right.
to consider things that might lie beyond our current understanding.
What's fascinating here is that whether we interpret his story literally or metaphorically, it speaks to a very human need.
What's that?
A need for hope, for connection,
Okay.
for something greater than ourselves to help us through difficult times.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's like saying, even in our darkest moments, there's still a glimmer of possibility,
Absolutely.
of rescue, of something breaking through the darkness. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Is it purely a survival instinct, or is there something more at play, something that transcends the purely physical?
It's a question that has fascinated humans for centuries.
Right.
What role does faith play in survival situations? Is there a connection between belief, hope, and the will to live?
We talked earlier about those common threads and stories of miraculous survival.
Right.
That sense of peace, of being watched over.
Yeah.
Could that be our minds tapping into something larger than ourselves?
It's possible.
A source of strength we can't fully explain.
There's certainly anecdotal evidence to suggest that people with strong faith, a sense of purpose, often seem more resilient in the face of adversity. It's like having an inner reservoir of strength to draw upon.
So even if we can't scientifically prove or disprove the existence of angels,
Right.
or definitively explain Carlos's experience,
Yeah,
there's still something to be learned from it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Carlos's story, regardless of its ultimate explanation, highlights the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds.
And maybe that's the real takeaway here. Whether we interpret it literally or metaphorically,
Yeah.
it speaks to that universal human desire for connection,
Right.
for something to guide us through the darkness.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises questions about the nature of faith, the limits of our understanding, and the possibility that there are forces at work in the universe that we simply can't comprehend.
It reminds me of that saying,
What's that?
the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
Oh, yeah.
Just because we can't fully explain something scientifically doesn't mean it didn't happen,
Right.
or that it's not worthy of exploration.
Well said. And sometimes the most profound truths lie beyond the realm of the easily quantifiable or explainable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Carlos's story,
Yeah.
I think it's okay to embrace the mystery.
Yeah.
Even if we can't explain everything, those unanswered questions, those lingering possibilities, they're often what make a story truly compelling.
Indeed, and perhaps those mysteries are what make life so fascinating. They invite us to question, to explore, to remain open to the possibility that there's more to reality than we currently know.
Listeners, we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Okay.
But the conversation doesn't have to end here.
Right.
Carlos's story is just one of many that challenge our understanding of the world. Maybe it'll inspire you to seek out similar stories, to reflect on your own experiences, or even to share your thoughts with the podcast community.
Yeah, I like that.
Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.